Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to be walking you through a handful of the smaller fixes you can look at on the inside of the actual Chromebook itself. If you feel comfortable doing any of these by yourself, by all means go for it. But this is going to be a comprehensive video of everything on the inside of the Chromebook and most of the common issues with them. If you have any specific fixes you're looking for, there will be timestamps like the last video. All you have to do is scroll on a little red bar. It'll show thumbnails and a bit of a title of what you're looking at, or you can scroll down in the description and find all of them there as well. So starting out, we're going to take off the actual case itself once again. For this one, taking off the bottom part is a little bit harder than taking off the top part. So I usually just take off the corners first, lift those up, and then I attempt to pull it up a bit and then just kind of force it. Like I said, this one's a lot harder to do than the top part. There we go. And you kind of put that aside because obviously we don't need it. So on the underside of the Chromebook, there are going to be 9 screws. These do not come out, so don't worry about losing them. You can use a container for storing them if you'd like to, the ones on the inside when you're working on the inside, but I'm not really going to be taking anything out and trying to store it elsewhere, so we don't need this guy for this video. So we're going to go ahead and open this up real quick. If I feel the need that any of these require a more in-depth look, I'll create a video for them separately, but this is kind of like a comprehensive video, just kind of show you every bit on the inside of the Chromebook, and then you can kind of self-diagnose any issues that students have with them. So we're going to go ahead and open this guy up, all 9 screws. These do not come out once again, they just kind of loosen and then they stay in there because there's a part on the inside that keeps them in place so you can't lose them. And then once you get all of those up, the actual bottom panel itself will be really easy to get off. All you have to do is just kind of get your nail in there and then kind of pull up. It's usually easier to do up here near the hinges. I recorded this video once before, had bad audio, that's why I went for this corner because I have this turned the other way. Once you get in here, this is what you're looking at. So what are we looking at here? I'll kind of give you a quick walkthrough. So here's an overview. This big blue PCB you've got is your motherboard. Connected to that is a daughter board, kind of. It's connected onto the actual motherboard itself, but it's considered a daughter board. And then you have an actual daughter board connected through 2 ribbon cables going to this. The on the motherboard daughter board and the actual daughter board both have USB-Cs and USB-A. That's a headphone jack. Both have USB-As and USB-Cs. This is USB-C, this is USB-A. The other side, exact same thing. If you have any issues with these not working, these ones are going to be a bit of a different issue. You'll have to send this off to, well, actually, you'll give it to me. I'll send it off to the manufacturer, and they'll take a look at it since these are tied in the actual motherboard itself. These over here, though, are kind of a different story because they are on a daughter board. If for any reason these are not working, you can actually take out the entire thing. I've got one over here as a bit of a demonstration. Like let's say this, for example, this one came from a student's Chromebook. The USB-C port is off-center. It's kind of broken. So this would, of course, require you to completely replace the daughter board. On the actual daughter board itself, and on the motherboard as well, there are these little tan and gray brackets. The gray part of these brackets actually lift up to allow you to plug in the ribbon cable to those. So you can actually lift those up, and that kind of goes for every single like tan and gray part of the motherboard and in the inside of the computer itself. Those lift up to just allow easy insertion of the ribbon cable itself. The ribbon cable, I'll kind of show you down here as well. This lifts up. Ribbon cable, you can lift it out of there. There will be these little wings on the actual ribbon cable itself. I'll bring you guys a bit closer. So these little blue wings on the actual connector itself, these will go just above these little notches on the inside of the connector. Once you line those up and you give it a little bit of force to plug it in, make sure you're lining it up right. It'll fit snugly on top of there. Then you'll just push the gray part back over, and that'll lock the ribbon cable in place. This goes for every single ribbon cable on the actual computer itself. We can go for this one, this one. Just make sure that you're putting the ribbon cable in the correct way. As you can see, these are all marked MB, 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 MB. That stands for motherboard. Now, if you were to plug the other end into it, it would not connect properly. I know that sounds kind of like a weird thing for them to do, but these do need to be plugged in a certain way for them to function with the daughter board and motherboard appropriately. So just make sure MB is plugged into the motherboard side and the non-label side is plugged into the daughter board side. Sometimes it's labeled DB, but usually it doesn't have anything on it. And then make sure that the MB right here is connected to the IO over here. It's considered IO, I guess, in this one, but usually it's referred to as a daughter board. But make sure those are also plugged in. These ones don't have clips, however, they are really easy to unplug. You just lift up, little white connector, plug it back in, and you're good to go. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is the Wi-Fi card. That's this guy up here with a little Intel logo on it. This little chip is what controls your Wi-Fi connection at home and your Wi-Fi connection here at school when you're going over to the North Building, anything like that. This will basically keep you connected. A very, very common issue with these is that these little plugs right here will come unplugged. Luckily, Dell kind of took that into consideration and put this little metal bracket on top to keep those in place as best as they possibly can. However, there are still issues that come with that, and I'll kind of show you guys a quick fix for those. So what you want to do is take a screwdriver, Phillips head as well, and unscrew the screw on the post right here. Sorry if I'm hitting the camera. I'm not used to being so close and personal with the camera. And you'll pull the whole thing off. My screwdriver is magnetic. That won't always happen. Just kind of put that aside if you're working on it. But you have these two cables plugged in right here. One of these is WLAN, the other one is LAN. But you want to plug them in just like this, black on top, white on bottom. And they kind of tried to, kind of keep that. There's a filled in arrow on the top, a hollow arrow on the bottom of the chip, and that just kind of coincides on what you're looking at right here. These cables are very, very tricky to plug back in. They're very easy to unplug, but very hard to plug back in. So if they ever do come unplugged, like this, it is very easy to fix them. On the opposite side of this, I'm going to turn it around so you guys can see. On the opposite side of this is a ring and a small connector on the inside. If I can get it turned around, I'll show you guys. There you go. Is a ring and a small connector. That pretty much buttons on top of this guy right here. How I usually put these on, if in any circumstance this comes off, how I usually put that on is on the opposite side of your screwdriver. I'm pretty sure the ones in the tech office have this too. You can pull off the rubber part on the top and kind of use this as a punch to punch it back down into place. So we'll try that real quick. Don't turn this around unless you feel comfortable doing so. Usually they'll just stay like this though. I'm gonna have to move the camera a tiny bit just so I'm not hitting it this entire time, and I've actually got a good angle on the connector itself, but you'll just line it up as best as you possibly can and just kind of punch it down. If it doesn't click, you're not on it. It needs to click into place. Like I said, very tricky to put on there, but I've been doing this for God knows how long, so I kind of have a little bit of practice in it. If you need to use a flathead screwdriver, or you guys can't even see it, you can use a flathead screwdriver, or you can even use just the regular end of your Phillips head. You can kind of try and punch it down that way as well. Just make sure it's lined up. Make sure it clicks. Once it clicks, you're good. Like I said, very tricky to put on there. But no, it's on there now. Sometimes it makes a click noise, sometimes it doesn't. That time it didn't for whatever reason. But that's back on there. Make sure the black one's on top, white one's on bottom, and you're good to go. And then to put that back on, just take the little metal bracket you took off the first time. There will be a screw post right here. It has lips that it holds onto. There we go. And the screw just goes right back down into there. So we're going to screw that back on. Hopefully it doesn't come up again. And I took the screw with me. Hold on. Very tiny parts we're working with here. We'll go ahead and screw that back on. Make sure it's laying on top of those connectors. You do not want those coming loose. And you're all set there. There we go. It's back in place. You're fully connected, and you're good to go. So next up, what we're going to be looking at is, I'm going to swing you guys out here in a second. We're going to be taking a look at the speakers. So the speakers are these two units right here. This is your left speaker, this is your right speaker. I know that sounds weird, but when you have it turned up the right way, this is your left, this is right. Yeah. These are very easy to plug in and unplug if you need to get to them for any reason. There's usually a piece of clear tape, but Dell has decided to put yellow tape on this one, so I mean it's even better for demonstration purposes. This little connector right here, you can unplug, plug it back in if it needs to be unplugged and plugged back in. Just make sure it's tightly in there. And then there's only one plug that goes from the motherboard to the speakers that connects to the left speaker. So left goes over here. Then you channel the wire all the way down the bottom of the casing, and then it goes to the right speaker. So remember, one plug left on the right side, right on the left side, and then you just channel the wire down through. Very simple to fix, very easy to fix, but it is a fix nonetheless. These don't really screw in. They're held in by these little rubber rings and the indents right here. But these are posts for the screws on the back panel itself, so this will be held in place. They don't usually come loose and rock around, however, they will be held in place once the back panel is back on there. So one small thing I forgot to show you guys was the actual secondary screen connector, so I'll go and show that to you guys right now. So this silver plate near the hinge is your secondary video connector. This is essentially what tells the top screen what's going on in the motherboard. If for any reason this comes unplugged, it's very unlikely, but if it does, here's how to fix that. There's one screw that holds this entire plate in place, rather. Just unscrew that. Sorry for the phone going off. Give me one quick second to mute that. There we go. But you'll take off that one screw. Take off the entire plate, very, very light. Just pull it all off. Then you'll be exposed to this guy right here. This is your secondary video connector. This is what tells the motherboard what's going on the screen, and vice versa. It tells the screen what's going on the motherboard and what you're opening and whatnot. You'll just lift this small piece of plastic up, and then you can just pull it out. I don't know if this one clips. Does it clip? It clips. Yeah, don't pull that. The gray part right there lifts up. But you can pull this entire thing out. This one is a ribbon cable, unlike the one up top that is an actual connection. But once again, it's just like the other ribbon cables on this entire computer. There's these little grips. Go on there, close it in, close that up, and then you can take the metal part and put it back on top. Make sure that that is plugged in snugly, or the screen will not come on. Like I said, this should not come unplugged for any reason, but if it does, after you plug in a new screen, if it's not working, give this fix a try and it should start working. But screw this back on. Make sure don't cross thread. Make sure it's screwing in straight down. If you cross thread these, it'll be a nightmare to get them back out. So yeah, you're good. Sorry for the shaking camera. Once again, not used to having a camera this close when working on anything. So yeah, that's back on. Secondary screen connector, good to go. Now it's time to address the elephant in the room, the battery. Obviously, it's kind of hard to miss because it's bigger than your cell phone. So, this thing, obviously you need a battery to power a Chromebook or anything. So, to address this issue, you can just take out the screws on there. There's 3 of them, which is a very, very weird number to have of screws, but that's what they decided to go with. So 3 screws, 1, 2, 3, and there's a metal post up here holding that end in place, but we can go ahead and get rid of that as well. There is tape holding this in, so if there's going to be a little bit of resistance getting this thing out, however, it should not be an issue. Just lift up. Don't be afraid to put a little bit of pressure on the underside to lift it up, and we are good. Almost. We're almost there. You can also lift up this side, make it a little bit easier so you're not pulling the stuff off the motherboard itself, because that all hooks up right here, basically keeping the battery in place. And now you have your battery itself. We're going to put this one up here because I actually have a battery for demonstration purposes right here amongst the many parts I've gotten here. So here is your battery. Like I said, this thing is huge. This thing is the size of a cell phone, if not bigger. So this is what you're looking at when you're looking at a battery. So there's only 2 connections on this thing. You have one that goes from the motherboard to the battery, and then obviously from the battery to the motherboard. This is probably the only part you'll ever have to unplug, and that plugs in right here on the motherboard, just below the Dell logo. But for any reason, if the battery's good, you know the battery's good, and the wire is bad, you can actually unplug this part from the battery as well. Just pull up right here. There's a piece of black fabric. Just pull up. I have to put a little bit of force into it and kind of shimmy it up. But there you go. Unplugs there. And then you can plug it back in if need be. Like I said, very seldom does this happen. But for any reason, if the cable's fine, if the cable's bad but the battery's good, you can go ahead and take care of that. If the battery is bad and you guys do not have any replacement batteries in your office, just bring it to me. I'll take care of it. Usually we're supposed to send this off to the manufacturer themselves, but if you guys have any extra batteries down there and want to give it a shot, by all means, go for it. There's nothing wrong with experimenting with fixing computers, except for when you're trying to fix something that you have no idea how to fix. That's why I'm making these videos, so you guys have something to look at if you want to look at fixing any of these. But now I'll show you with this battery. To unplug that, there's a black piece of fabric right there. It's laying down, so I'm going to pull it up with the screwdriver real quick. Just to get a good grip. And you're just going to pull that right out of the motherboard. It takes a little bit of force, but do not be afraid to put a little bit of force behind it. And there you go. Now I'm unplugged from the motherboard. Guess I didn't really need the demonstration battery because I was going to pull it out anyways to show you guys the last two parts underneath here. But now you've got access to your keyboard and your touchpad. So, touchpad, obviously your mouse. Laptops have them. You need them to kind of navigate if it doesn't have a touchscreen. Luckily, this one does. If the touchpad stops working for any reason, make sure that these are tightly secured. Once again, same thing as the rest of them. They lift up. Luckily, these ones are actually marked with a black line that goes flush with the beige part of the connector. So it'll line up perfectly. Then you put the part over it, and it should block up that black line. Once again, make sure it's in the right orientation. MB motherboard, TP touchpad. There you go. This black connector right here is your keyboard. Once again, this should not come unplugged. However, if it does, this just is another ribbon cable. You can plug it in, unplug it. I don't feel comfortable unplugging that because I haven't taken a look at it myself. So if you have any keyboard issues where this comes unplugged, just bring it to me and I'll take a look at it. And then once I get more comfortable with looking at it, I will kind of instruct you guys from then on. Other than that, that is pretty much all of the internals of the Chromebook. So once again, a quick overview. You've got your motherboard with an onboard I/O with a daughter board connected through ribbon cables. You've got your Wi-Fi card, your secondary video connector, your speakers, your battery, your touchpad, and your keyboard connectors. So I'm going to go and put the battery back in. We're going to put this guy back together, and we'll see if I messed anything up in the process. That's always the fun part about taking these things apart, is when you put it back together, you are not entirely sure if the thing's going to work or not. The beauty of building computers and building desktops is no different. So we're going to put this guy back together. All 3 screws in the battery. Luckily, that's really the only thing that actually takes screws on the inside of here, other than the Wi-Fi card, and the secondary video connector. Those are the only other 2 screws you need, but luckily, if you're just getting to the keyboard, touchpad, or anything, you only need to take out 3 screws. So that's good. Other than the 9 on the back of the... So there's more than 3 screws. I'm starting to realize that while saying this. There's more than 3 screws to worry about, but the other 9, those don't come out of the back panel at all. So I'm going to swing you guys up real quick. All right, we're going to go ahead and put the back panel back on. So that's this guy right here. There are these little cutouts for the hinges. I know we're turned the opposite way than we were when we began this, but it's okay. Bear with me. Very, very simple. 9 screws. The bit came out. I just tried to screw in a screw without a bit. And the last 3. 1, 2, and the last one here in the middle. You don't have to do these in a specific order, I just prefer doing it that way. And you are all put back together. Make sure that this is fully snapped in. It shouldn't have to snap in, but if for any reason it does, just make sure you're going along the corners. I'm a liar. That one needed to snap in a little bit. Just make sure all of it is snapped in, and you're all set. Now comes the fun part, putting the back part of the case back in, or the bottom part, I guess. What I usually do is I usually lift up the bottom part, kind of slide it on. Just make sure it's actually going into the case like this. And then you can just kind of put it up against yourself, put some force into it, and push it on. Corners are on. And now comes the fun part. Does it power on? This will be a test to see if I'm actually a good instructor on teaching you guys how to take these things apart, if it actually wants to work. Daughter board's working fine, light comes on. How about that video connection? These usually take a long time to turn on, so I'll just kind of do the usual outro stuff. Oh, yep, there we go. Video works just fine. And then we'll check the battery real quick. If everything works, I think I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, there we go. Battery's just fine. I actually know what I'm talking about for once. But yeah. Oh, this. The connection in my room is bad. Yeah, there you go. Now it's connecting to Wi-Fi. I didn't mess that up. Very simple thing to mess up too. But hopefully you guys found this informative. Once again, there are timestamps if you need them. Obviously, this is the end of the video, so it doesn't really matter if you guys know about the timestamps now. But this is just some of the smaller fixes you guys can take a look at. Feel free to experiment with any of the stuff I've shown you if you want to look at any of the issues that are going on with the Chromebooks you have in your office. Hopefully this was informative and kind of showing you guys how to diagnose some of those smaller issues. If you have any questions or anything, or you want me to teach you guys about anything, please feel free to reach out. I'll have my phone extension and my email down in the description. You guys can reach out and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I'm right down the hall from the media center, so I can come down there and teach you guys some of the bigger fixes if you'd like. But yeah, that's pretty much it. These guys are very simple to fix. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll be supplying you with parts and also just a few more videos kind of teaching you some of the bigger fixes on some of these internal parts if it's necessary. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later.